Hey guys, welcome to ThinkPeace episode 2. Today I'm going to be talking about Mama D from Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, who's Scrappy's mother. And I'm talking about this topic today because over the past couple of days I've been seeing videos circulating on social media about Scrappy confronting his mother about the way he was raised and how traumatized he is and how dysfunctional his household was. And he finally got to speak his piece about the pain that he and his sister endured at the hands of his mother, right? And so some background, I used to watch Love and Hip Hop years ago when my sister and I were much closer. She used to watch the show a lot and I would, go see her and she always watched the show. But I hated the fact that these women spend so much money on hair and nails and clothes and makeup, but they still act cheap. They still acted like hookers or prostitutes. And the paradox bothered my brain. Like, it doesn't make sense for you to spend all this money trying to look good, but you're acting like trash on purpose for TV. It was just absurd to me. I could not understand it. I get it logically, but spending all this money to look like something and then you're acting completely the opposite. And apparently, it doesn't work, because if you're spending all that money trying to look good and you don't work on yourself as a person, on your personality, on your integrity, on your morals, right? You don't work out your dysfunctions, you're going to end up in situations like Erica Mena, marrying somebody who only wants you for how you look and not for who you really are, right? So much effort and attention is put onto it's excessive. These women look clownish every time, and I was very irritated about that when I was watching the show years ago. And so I saw Erica again for the first time in a while. I'm like, what happened to her face? Why did she mess with her face? She was already a pretty girl. It's just too much. But anyway, Scrappy confronted his mother about the way he was raised. He said he was raised in a whorehouse, essentially. His mom was a pimp. He was raised around prostitutes and whores and crack vials and things like that. And that childhood experience scarred him. It made him someone who could not operate well in relationships. And I remember the way he treated his first baby's mother, Erica Dixon, who seemed to be a good woman, a good potential partner to be with, but he had his issues to deal with. And I remember vaguely Mama D kind of condoning his mistreatment of her. When Mama D first popped on the scene years ago, I said, this can't be real. This lady's too old to be acting like this, okay? This lady, I wondered back then if Scrappy was embarrassed of his mother, but he seemed to be not afraid of her, but she seemed to infantilize him, and he would kind of kiss her behind. When children feel the need to have to kiss their mothers or parents behind, it usually means that the parent was abusive to them, or that the child feels like if they don't kiss their parents behind, the parent will withhold affection or love from that child. So if I don't tell you what you want to hear, if I don't always respect you, no matter how disrespectful you are to me, you're going to punish me by saying something or doing something to make me feel like I'm not loved, I'm not wanted, I'm not appreciated as your child. And that is always the way that Scrappy treated his mother, in my opinion. He would turn the other cheek a lot of times when she would do just ratchet things. And I'm like, this has to be for TV. It cannot really be like this. Apparently it was really like that because, Scrappy said his mom was a pimp. To me, a person who's a pimp has no concern or regard for the lives of others. These are textbook narcissists to me. If someone is okay with you selling your body and then taking your money that you're earning by selling your body, they feel entitled to the money that you've earned, right? Or that you made by degrading yourself. They feel entitled to that. And they try to force you to give them money that your body earned. That somebody does not care about anyone but themselves. So Scrappy's mother, and I don't know how she was raised. I wouldn't be surprised if she was raised ratchet too. She was born in 1958, so her parents could have been baby boomers. I wouldn't be surprised if her parents were born in the 30s and 40s, and I talked about that generation in the past. The generation of Black Americans who stopped sacrificing for their children, who prioritized their pleasure over building a stable foundation and future for their kids, right? who was out here in the streets doing drugs and twerking and partying and not investing in their children's future, treating their kids like burdens, treating their kids like welfare checks, treating their kids like they owed them something, okay? Treating their kids as if they resented them for being born. The generation that was born after the Pluto and Cancer generation, the boomers, they were largely responsible for starting this trend. I'm not saying that things were perfect before then, but before the civil rights era, okay, before the boomers who were born from 1938 to 1958, our families were more intact, right? Even though there was lots of abuse back in the day, but there was more care and concern for the well-being of children. After that generation, if Mama D says she was 58 years old, that means that she was born in 1964. Her parents could have had her when they were in this is the 1940s. So they could have been born in 1940s, right? This is boomer generation, okay? I'm not surprised that she turned out the way she did. Scrappy's mother is not capable of giving him the love that he deserves. She's only concerned with herself. And I noticed that, when she was arguing with him and they were sitting down in the stands, in that one scene that I saw on social media, he was trying to, talk to his mother and tell her his truth. And she kept ignoring him and acting as if she didn't know what he was talking about, or, he had no right to disrespect her. She was sitting there with her legs crossed, okay, with an expensive wig on, acting as if she's some respectable mother, as if she's some classy lady. So in the public, she wants the people to see her as somebody who's mature, who's a good mother, who puts her son first, who's financially independent. And then Kirk came over there, right? Kirk came over at some point in the conversation and he said, you crazy Mama D. The way that her face balled up and scowled at her son, that was hatred for me. She hated the fact that somebody else agreed with her son. They understood what he was dealing with. They understood how he felt. So to the world, she wants to be perceived one way, right? She wants to be perceived as this matriarch, this classy woman not this classy woman, but this woman who loved her son more than anything else, and she did everything for him. But Kirk, when he came over and said, you crazy, at that point, it dawned on her that people don't see her the way she sees herself. And at the moment when he told her that, she blamed Scrappy for that. That is why her face scowled at him in that way. It looked like a damn demon was about to come out. So that's when she lost her cool. She lost her cool when Kirk came over and gave support to Scrappy by saying, you crazy. So whatever he's saying, it must be true, right? At the end of that particular scene, Mama D says something like, if it came out of his mouth, it must be a lie, right? So she's dismissing and she's invalidating his experiences because they don't corroborate with her idea of who she thinks she is and how she wants other people to perceive her. So here she is looking like Shaka Zulu with a wig on, right? Henry Seeley from Shaka Zulu in the 80s. Every time I saw her, I was like, who does she look like? She looks like Shaka Zulu with a wig on. And it's obvious she has Native American heritage. Obvious. She looks like a Native American, but also like Shaka Zulu, okay, with a wig. So this lady is spending all this money trying to look a certain way, right? Got expensive wigs. I pay my bills. I'm an independent woman. That is the mantra of the ain't shit mother, okay? I pay my bills. I take care of this. I take care of that. But you did not take care of a child though, right? So you're willing to do anything you could to pay the bills. That wasn't necessarily for your child. You were doing it because nobody else would do it for you, because more than likely you're a ratchet person, okay? And sometimes we end up in situations and circumstances, beyond our control, where we don't have the support of a partner or a family or a community. I get that. So I'm not shaming Mama D for her own trauma. I'm sure she went through a lot. And any woman who is a pimp and runs a whorehouse with her children has gone through a lot, right? And I can't attack her, or I can't comment about what Scrappy's trauma is without acknowledging his mother's trauma too. And during the conversation, Scrappy was like, don't blame me for your trauma and your hurt, because she was like, I'm hurt too, right? Again, invalidating how he was feeling by trying to pull rank and saying, well, your feelings don't mean anything because I'm hurt as well. My feelings are worth more than yours because I'm your mother and you never disrespect your mother. She seems like the kind of person who will pull rank over a child and say, I'm your mother, you can't do this. I'm your mother, you can't say that. I'm your mother, this is the way you should feel or react and respond to my disrespect towards you. That is how I see Mama D, okay? So I'm happy that Scrappy is finally growing up. He looks like a Cancer or Capricorn. Cancers and Capricorn men usually are bulky, and they have a very slower, sluggish way of communicating. I wonder if he's one of those signs. And if he is one of those signs, if he's a Cancer or Capricorn, he is holding a whole lot in, and he's conflicted because on the one hand, he loves his mother for being his mother. She provided provision for him. No matter how raggedy the provision was, she was the only one that was there. Apparently his father wasn't there, so she couldn't say nothing about that. I wonder if Scrappy even knows his father, right? If she was hoeing around back in the day, maybe she didn't know. And so he feels indebted to her because she's his mother. And she took care of him when nobody else would, right? She took care of him and his sister. But the conditions in which he did it was not favorable for him, for his development. She made him feel inadequate. There was danger in the household. There was this filth and dysfunction and a lack of security and a lack of love. And Mama D was operating at a very low vibration at the time, and she still is. The trauma she endured, in my opinion, turned her into a narcissistic person. And that happens to a lot of people in our community who grew up, again, in certain situations and circumstances where we were very poor, we were mistreated by our family, we were sexually abused as children, and that kind of treatment fosters mental health problems at a later age. And so people like Mama D who are broken, right? They have a very difficult time having empathy for other people, okay? There's no individuation in the sense that you don't acknowledge your son. She doesn't acknowledge her son as his own separate man, his own separate entity. He's only her child, right? That's her property, okay? So she feels valuable as a human being or powerful because she's somebody's mother. Not because she's a good mother, not because she's a good person, not because she loves him, but because she has authority over him. And so when she mentioned, I pay my own bills, I do this and the third, she was speaking to her own trauma about perhaps not having anyone provide and protect her. So she had to be her own provision and her own protection, right? She became the man in her life, okay? And she was the man in her children's lives, right? And, I'm not a therapist or psychologist. I always say that. But the things that Mama D had to do to survive, it transformed her into a different person. It transformed her into a person who was heartless, who is cold, who is insecure, right? Who needs to have control over others, who's disrespectful, and who doesn't see her son as his own man or doesn't see her children as their own people. They're extensions of herself, right? She said to him, don't speak to your mother that way. And Scrappy he lost his temper because he was like, you speak to me like I'm a dog, in a sense. You speak to me with disrespect. Scrappy was saying, in a sense, he was not treating his mother as bad as she treated him and his sister when they were growing up. So to be honest, she should be grateful that he's been as respectful as he has been since then. And he lost his temper, and I'm not surprised. So many young boys snap. And I talked to my sister about this and some other people about this. When mothers are too controlling or forceful or harsh or oppressive to their children, especially the boys, at some point, the boys will snap. They're tired of being emasculated. They're tired of feeling invalidated. And sometimes they'll end up attacking or killing their mothers. We've seen this happen more and more and more in recent years where young boys or men, or not young men, but men who have been infantilized by their mothers, they end up destroying or hurting their mothers severely because, in my opinion, they're essentially trying to remove the thing or the person that's posing an existential threat to their existence. I noticed this in mothers who coddle their sons, and I noticed this in mothers who abuse or dismiss their sons. It's either or. Sometimes mothers do everything for their child. They spoil their male child, and then that child grows up resenting the mother because he never had the opportunity to make mistakes. He never had the opportunity to develop strength and develop courage and build character, which is important for a man. I said this weeks ago, and I think I said this. I was supposed to, if I did not say it. Men are supposed to suffer in life. If they do not suffer, they end up being soft, okay? Back in the day, women used to have rites of passage, okay? The men would go through rituals or experiences that were very traumatizing for them. They would be beaten, not the men, the children, the male children would go through rituals or experiences where they'd be beaten and they'd be starved or they'd be terrorized by the elders in the village. And this was to help build the boy's character. It was to help him to become confident as a man and also develop his survival instinct. You cannot be afraid of the world if you have to go out into the wilderness and hunt wild animals at night. Okay, you can't be weak and afraid of the world if you are the only man or the only person who can protect and provide for his family, or you're the only one who can protect the village, right? So back in the day, male children were forced into situations or to go through experiences that were traumatizing for them, that were seen as abusive. They were taken away from the mother at some point, and they were allowed to develop as boys or men among other men, okay? Now, it's important to note that after these rites of passage experiences, the boys were not continually abused and invalidated. The boys were actually empowered. They graduated into manhood, okay? Mothers cannot do that for their sons. Mothers cannot coddle their boys into manhood, right? And Paul Mooney talked about this years ago when he was alive. Rest in peace to him. Paul Mooney said that a lot of Black mothers coddle their sons because they're afraid of their sons being hung. This is something that was passed down from slavery. The male children who were too rambunctious, too independent, too strong, too brave, they will be targeted by the slave master to be killed first. And the mother, in an effort to save her son, she pretty much emasculated the boy, right? She pretty much took his teeth away. She psychologically castrated him. She took out his desire and his drive and his will to fight, right? Fight against the slave master. And that testosterone and that animosity and that anger and that energy has to go somewhere. So a lot of Black men in those situations, they internalize that anger. They internalize that sense of helplessness. They internalize that fear, right? That was projected onto them by their mother. And as a male, you cannot operate in that paradigm. And a lot of these men who were psychologically castrated by their mothers end up abusing women. Okay, they may even abuse children or just anybody who they feel like are in a weaker position than them because they need to exert some sort of masculinity as a part of their nature. Anger and aggression has been a biological function that's necessary for the male survival. The men need to suffer. They need to get punched in the face occasionally, okay, to feel alive. It makes them feel happy when they get punched in the face and they survive, okay? They like fighting. Fighting is sport for them. And when a mother coddles her son, she denies him the opportunity to develop his muscles and his skills and tools that he needs to be a man. And so I believe that is kind of what Scrappy's mother did to him, Mommy D did to him. Even though he grew up fast, he grew up hard, he didn't grow up with any love. So it was like a wild child, right? He had too much roughness. It was too much harshness. And he mentioned it in another clip. He was like, I can't go to you because you hard. I can't go to my wife, Bambi, because she's hard. I can't go to any woman in my life because you're all hard, right? And basically that's a testament to how difficult many Black women have it. Black women are not used to being, not all Black women, some Black women are pampered princesses, but most Black women have been conditioned to be their provider and their protector. So when someone comes along and they're trying to be vulnerable, Black women get triggered by that because they were never allowed to be able to be vulnerable themselves. So they don't know how to handle it. When a man comes to them being vulnerable, they get triggered, they get afraid even. They may even get irritated because it's like, okay, I was never allowed to be vulnerable myself, so I don't know how to handle your vulnerability. I don't have the tools to deal with it. I don't have the empathy for it even, or the patience, because your vulnerability makes me feel insecure. And when I'm insecure, right, when Black women who are not protected or provided for get insecure, they get angry. Or they go to work. They don't have the luxury of just crumbling and crying and saying, world, please save me. No. So when they see vulnerable men around them, when they see vulnerable children around them, when they see vulnerable women around them, a lot of women kind of go on the attack, or they get defensive, or they get triggered. And they try to fix things in a masculine way. They try to do things, right? A woman who is feeling insecure will probably work harder for money. She'll probably become physically abusive to her partner even, because she feels like by exerting masculine brute strength, she's more safe and more secure. So when Scrappy cries to women in his life, they can't provide a soft shoulder from to lean on, or an empathetic ear, even though Erica may have been able to do that. I don't think Bambi could have. I don't know. But that's because of the way we were raised. So Mama D, this is not me attacking her only, because she went through something in her life that made her this way, okay? And her parents probably didn't give a damn either about her. That's just what it was, right? So just to go back to Scrappy, he's tired of feeling emasculated. And I could tell he felt emasculated by the way that he was treating his ex, Erica Dixon, okay? When Mama D mentioned the fact that he was basically broke, that really hurt him, because as a man, you want to be seen as a protector and a provider. And I think that Scrappy's identity or his value to his mother and other women in his family or society in general, his value is based on how much money he had, right? As a rapper, as a whatever. So I think for the first time in his life, right? Once he started making some money as a rapper, for the first time in his life, he felt valuable to someone. He felt like he did it. He felt successful and accomplished. He felt like he was important. And so when someone says you're broke, it's essentially saying you don't have any value to me. That is the way a pimp would think. If a prostitute does not bring a pimp money, then that prostitute is essentially worthless. No matter how much money she's made for the pimp before, no matter how nice she is, no matter how dire her needs are, you are essentially worth nothing if you can bring me no money. If you can't enrich me with your body, I don't care about you. If you don't make me feel secure and powerful and better than you in a sense, then I don't care about you. You're worth nothing to me. And I think that Mama D projected that pimp mentality onto her children. I wouldn't be surprised if Scrappy was selling drugs or something at a young age because he wanted to feel valuable and like he was contributing to the household, which isn't a bad thing. But a child should not, I don't care man or woman, male or female, a child should not feel like garbage or worthless if they're not giving money to their parents to pay the bills. You know, doing chores and taking your responsibilities, you're supposed to do that. But I don't think that children should be giving their parents money, at least until the child is independent on its own. Like, I don't agree with parents charging their children money, period. But some children want to take care of their parents. That's their prerogative. But at the very least, if your child is trying to get on their feet, don't ask them for any money. That makes no sense. Let the child give it to you by choice if they want to do that. Don't guilt the child into doing that. And I would not be surprised again if Scrappy's sense of worth was attached to the amount of money he was making. And so maybe when he became a rapper, I've never heard of any of his songs at all, and that's by choice. Maybe when he started to make more money as a rapper, his mother gave him respect that she never gave him before. She saw him as someone who was successful and someone who she could tether herself to prove how good of a mother or how valuable of a mother she was to him, right? So Scrappy's success was a reflection on her. Or I'll say it in a better way. Scrappy's success made it easier for Mama D to avoid addressing or taking responsibility for the dysfunctional environment he grew up in. So things must not have been that bad. You became a successful rapper, right? Things must not have been that bad. You're on a TV show. I must not be that bad of a mother because look at where you are now, right? Even though you were around whores and pimps and violence and drugs as a kid, you survived. Look at you. See, you're doing great. I'm a good mother. And so, yeah, my heart goes out to Scrappy. Okay, he was showing genuine emotions and feelings and he lost his temper. He probably wanted to take his mother's head off. Not literally, but he wanted her to hear him, and she would not hear him. She was only concerned about her own feelings or how other people would perceive her based on what her son was exposing about the way he was raised, right? And so again, when Kirk came over and said, "Mama, do you know you crazy?" and her face just kind of like scowled at Scrappy with such anger. Like she was so angry with him in that moment. Like, how dare anybody agree with what my son is saying? I'm the authority here. I'm the mother. She's the kind of person that will pull rank on her child and say, I'm your mother, so no matter what I do, it's right. No matter what I do or say, you have to put up with it because you're my child. These are the kind of parents who resent having children or who saw their children as burdens. And so now they use their children. At a certain point, they use their children to validate their own existence. So, okay, I'll give you an example. As a kid, Scrappy may not have gotten a lot of attention. He may have not have gotten a lot of love and support and warmth, right? Because his mother was ripping around the streets and doing her own thing. And, you know, she would provide provision for the kids, but only sparingly and begrudgingly. And she would probably remind them of how much she had to do to take care of them. Now that she's older and looks more like Shaka Zulu with the wig on, right? She doesn't have as many male suitors potentially. She may be alone. She may not have as many friends or people who are willing to do her bidding because of her age and whatever the case may be. So now she's going to give Scrappy more attention, or she's going to act as if she cares about her more than she did when he was a kid, because number one, she doesn't have to take care of him anymore. So it's easy to do that when you don't have to take care of somebody, right? It's easy to pretend to love somebody when you don't have to spend money to actually take care of them and provide for them, okay? That's a front too, right? So that's the reason. And number two, she needs him for emotional support because she's getting older. She probably doesn't have a man or she can't keep a man or whatever the case may be, right? So now her son has become her surrogate husband, right? So I'm going to be there for you as an adult more than I was as when you were a child, because I don't have to take care of you no more, so there's no resentment there. You're not asking me for anything, right? And on top of that, your presence makes me feel valuable as a mother because you look up to me, you love me unconditionally, you cherish me, you appreciate my presence. So no matter how badly I treated you as a child, I can use the fact that you still love me to pretend as if you weren't abused, to pretend as if that was all in the past, nothing ever happened, right? Mama D mentioned that she doesn't spend beyond her means and so on and so forth. I think Scrappy may have asked her for money at some point, and Scrappy talked about the fact that he couldn't tell his mother certain things because she would tell other people. Of course she would do that. 2 weeks ago or last week, I talked about the fact that you cannot tell certain people your business. If you have people who are jealous of you or competitive against you or who are insecure about themselves, they will use the information that you're giving them when you're being vulnerable and honest, right? And your guard is down and you need them for something. At some point, they will weaponize your vulnerability against you. At some point, they will either make fun of the fact that you needed them, or they will try to make you feel bad or worthless because you need their help, right? So they don't care about actually helping you. They just want to hear that you need help. They want to know that you're struggling and in pain, and that makes them feel better. So they may help you at the time, but in the back of their mind, they're gloating about it. They feel like they're superior to you, or they feel like they're punishing you for something that you had no idea you were doing. And I said that this is how Tisha was treating Kiki and Melody, okay? Melody at some point was in a position that Tisha envied, right? She was married, had a beautiful husband, She was the CEO of Holt & Holt, all this stuff. And while Tisha would suck up to Melody to gain from their relationship, either professionally or financially, when she would suck up to Melody, in the back of her mind, she was waiting for Melody to struggle. She was waiting for the day that Melody's crown would be tilted, right? Where Melody would need some help. Because in some way, that would make Tisha feel equal to Melody, just like, when Kiki was going through her struggles with addiction problems. That made Tisha feel equal to her because Kiki grew up with privilege and Tisha grew up, on the other side of the tracks. But anyway, because Mama D is a narcissist, she's always competing with the people around her, even her own children. I shudder to think about how she treated her daughter. I don't know nothing about her daughter. I don't know if she's on the show, but if she treated Scrappy the way that she's treating him, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if she treated her daughter worse, okay? Because a lot of women who are pick-me's and narcissists treat their daughters worse than their sons. A lot of narcissistic women see their sons as their surrogate husbands, and they see their daughters as competition for raggedy penis, okay? So anyway, when Scrappy would go to his mother in confidence and tell her about his problem, she was waiting for the opportunity to use that against him in a moment where he asserted himself, in any moment where he basically called her out for her bullshit. And she's like, you can't call me out for nothing because at least I don't do this, I don't do that, I don't do that. So she's throwing the things that Scrappy told her in confidence back in his face to make him feel bad, right? To check him, to put him in his place. So you can't call me out for nothing because at least I do this, I do that, I do that. So she can never take accountability for her actions. She is somebody who's like a street cat. Someone who feels the need to scratch and bite and claw out of every situation instead of graciously listening to what her child is saying. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if Scrappy in the past was afraid of challenging his mother because of this reaction. He saw how she treated people who did not do what she said or people who called her out on her BS, right? So now it's, I pay my own bills, I don't this, that, and the third, I don't whatever. So you don't have any right to call me out for the trauma that I put you through because you're not perfect either. You don't pay your bills on time or whatever. You ask me for help, right? If I'm a bad mother, why are you asking me for help? And Scrappy was triggered by that. That made him feel really, really bad because it's like, I'm coming to you for comfort and support and you're pretending to be on my side. You're pretending to love me just to have control over me, right? Isn't that how pimps treat their prostitutes? They pretend to love them so that the prostitute can continue to give them money, so that the prostitute believes that the pimp actually cares about them. So I'm going to treat you like I love you, I care about you, I'm here for you, okay? So that you don't feel as bad or as stupid for giving me most of your money, even though you're doing all the work. So I think Mama D's love and support for Scrappy is transactional. It's transactional. So if you do this for me, I'm gonna do this for you. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be treated with respect if you treat someone else with respect. But what Mama D is doing is saying that as long as you do what I say, I'll love you. That's it. As long as you feed me emotionally, you make me feel valuable as a person, you love me unconditionally, no matter how shitty I treat you, I'm going to pretend to care about you. I'm going to pretend to want what's best for your well-being. I'm going to pretend that I don't secretly resent you for low-key ruining my life by being born. That is how a lot of narcissists think, okay? Because I resent you for being born and taking away my freedom and my opportunities to be out in the streets dotting and bopping because I had to take care of you, right? I couldn't be out here doing what I want to do anymore. I'm going to need you to give me your undying loyalty, regardless of how I treat you, regardless of how many relationships I ruin, regardless of how much I hurt you. I'm going to need you to give me your undying loyalty and unconditional love in return for the sacrifice I made for giving birth to you and doing the bare minimum to take care of you, basically. So yeah, I'm not surprised that Scrappy blew up at his mother. It's a good thing that he didn't take her head off, because some of these boys, they're getting tired of it. And some of them will attack their mothers physically if they feel as if their mothers are impeding on their psychological, spiritual, social, and emotional growth, okay? But anyway, I'm gonna leave it there. I look forward to reading your comments. If you want to order an astrology or tarot reading, go to mindsoflilith.com. Complete the order entry form and submit your payment via CashApp or Stripe. YouTube has me shadow banned because I had the audacity to call out certain peoples for doing certain things. So they accused me of hate speech, and I don't expect this video to do much numbers because of that, and that's fine. But if you notice that you have been unsubscribed from the channel, or your notification bell has been turned off, just resubscribe to the channel or hit the notification bell again. Thank you all for listening, and I will speak to you soon.